it's a fun job because you work with all types of people and you meet all types of people who have all these different goals. And it's just like the journey of it is really awesome. So the fact that I'm able to work with young athletes at the University of Arizona in a team setting and then being able to work with people one-on-one coaching, like I get the best of both worlds. I get to meet a ton of people who may stick with strength training and CrossFit and all that, or may go a different direction. But as long as I get to help them out in some way, shape, or form, that's really all that matters to me.
The fitness movement is brought to you by ZOAR Fitness. We offer coaching and individualized program design, as well as educational content for coaches and athletes. It's all at one place, ZOARfitness.com. Well, Dave, welcome back.
Hey, what's up?
So we had you once on the fitness movement before. It was episode 46, and the topic was on balancing life as an athlete and coach. So, Dave, how are we doing on balancing life as an athlete and coach these days?
Goes up and down. It comes in waves, but I think after spending more time in it, I found what works and what doesn't work, and it's been pretty good so far. I can't complain.
Yeah, I feel like you've had a lot of life changes and like career stuff and just like a lot going on since we last talked. So, are you still active or currently in like Air Force Reserves?
I am. So I'm still in the Air Force Reserves, which basically means 1 weekend a month I go on base, and we call it drills, basically like catching up on training and things like that, military training. So it's not as time intensive as it was when we last recorded the podcast, because I think during that time I was also on orders, meaning I was going in a lot more often than that 1 weekend a month. So that's simmered down quite a bit.
One thing that's been at least put a little bit on the back burner.
Yeah.
Probably good. So you were also like coaching in a CrossFit style gym, and ultimately you ended up getting an internship at the University of Arizona, which is obviously a sweet opportunity, but definitely a different direction than what school had looked like up to that point. Because you were in, correct me if I'm wrong, but like chemical engineering for bachelor's and master's?
Yeah, for my bachelor's in grad school. And then I also got a master's in it's called information and knowledge strategy, basically project management stuff.
Yeah, but not strength conditioning.
Correct, not strength and conditioning.
So how did you end up going from that field and obviously people are going to school for something, they kind of plan on going that direction, why pivot towards the strength conditioning side of things?
Right. And that's there's a few different things that I think actually if I could go back in time and change my education and what I studied, I would still probably do the same thing. I really like math and science, so that's one thing. But when it comes to coaching and programming and doing all those things, it's a lot like a science experiment, right? There are all these variables that you're manipulating, what works, what doesn't work. Sometimes it doesn't go the way you want it to. But ideally what you're trying to get to is this optimal result. That's a lot like engineering and science research. So while I was in school, I was doing a lot of strength training and getting into that, and realized that was a huge passion of mine. Kind of became a little obsessed with it, if you want to say that. And that's just continued on. So as it continued on, what I started realizing is I was focusing a lot more on strength training, conditioning, all those things in the fitness world versus what I actually studied and what my job was. So that's where I started to transition out of that, realizing that I could probably still take the skills that I learned from that background and more to this, where I could actually do something that I thoroughly enjoy doing and, take off with that. So,
yeah. So now you're currently full-time at the University of Arizona, strength conditioning staff there. What's a day in the life look like for you?
Yeah. So, like you mentioned, so for anyone listening, I started there as an intern, more to kind of just see what that world was about, because I was full time at a local gym, the one that you mentioned. So I was full time at a local gym there. Kind of wanted to see what a team setting looked like at Power Five collegiate level, working with a younger demographic, right? Because that's a whole different ball
Mm,
game there.
yeah, definitely a different approach, like different mindset of like the average person that you're working with at like a
Right.
D1 school versus like, you know, yeah, the average commercial gym type feel where it's like a lot of, yeah, soccer
Yeah.
moms, and that's a very different demographic.
Right. Very different demographic, very different approach. So I kind of wanted to see what that looks like. I had an idea, but I wanted to see it put in practice in front of me. So I started there. What was your original question? I went on this
Just kind of
tangent.
like what, yeah, I'm just kind of getting a feel for what like a day
Oh,
looks
day
like
to
for
day.
you. Yeah.
Yeah. So now as a full-time person, I have several different teams, which it's the teams that I have are swimming, diving, men's golf, and triathlon. So all very different sports as well. So they practice anywhere from 2 to 3 times a week, practice in the strength room. So strength training stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, so I program for them. We use an online platform called Bridge Athletics, which you just input the workouts there, and then they have their iPads where they're doing everything. So I would say each day there's about, I would say anywhere from 3 to 4 hours of training teams. And then the other hours during the workday, I'm using it to either go to their practices to see what the sport demands are and learn about those sports, and see it being put into place, kind of see what their workload looks like too outside of the strength training room, because that's something that I like to take into account as well. Some teams train really hard and they come into the weight room extremely fatigued. So accounting for that and trying to make the time in that room useful. And then also the other hours of the day are spent programming for them, or just I like to just sit down sometimes and just nerd out on some resources online that I find, take courses, whatever I can do to just continuously learn.
Yeah, really cool. We were talking about this the other day, but it's like it's the demands for strength conditioning of like a, you know, a football player versus like a triathlon athlete, like very different. So it's cool that like you didn't maybe have a ton of exposure to all those sports before like you were kind of put in that position, but like being able to like learn and like actually go like view their practices and like kind of see what they're able to handle, and like understanding like what the place is of strength conditioning for like, you know, a sport where like that's maybe not the sole thing that you're trying to like drive up is like the you know, pure strength levels, but like something like triathlon, like strength conditioning's role is very different. Yeah, I mean, how have you, what was it, how's been your like approach to triathlon specifically?
Yeah, for triathlon, that's a whole different beast, and for several different reasons. So my approach has been learning from people who have been in that field working with triathlon, like national level professional triathletes,
Yeah.
and just learning from them, because the first time they told me I was going to take on that team, the thing I think about is the training load. They're doing a ton
Yeah,
of
so
endurance
much
work.
volume. Yeah.
Yeah, so much volume every day. And another thing too is some people come from a running background and some people come from a swimming background, which,
Hmm.
there's a lot of clashing there in terms of strengths and weaknesses, where there are things that runners are really good at. And then if you ask a swimmer to do the same thing, they're horrible at it, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So accounting for how am I going to approach that training in a team setting with people that have very colliding strength and weaknesses. So yeah, my approach has been really learning about the sport in general, learning about the training volume, and just asking a lot of questions, for people with asking a lot of questions to people who have a lot of knowledge in that field.
Yeah. But even like so like triathlon, obviously swimming is involved, the swim team, but even then it's like there's a spectrum of like energy systems that are being used. Like you could have someone who's a, you know, 50-meter swimmer, and like it's like a max effort sprint and very short duration, high power output, and someone else who's doing a different stroke in a much longer event. Like even with that, it's like there's a lot of different stuff going on. Like how, like for the swim team, like how do you navigate all those different varieties?
Yeah. So right now, triathlon team, most of them have, if they're have swimming background, they're usually they were long distance. So it goes a little bit, it meshes a little bit better with that. And I know in their specific sports practice, they do a lot of, swim work and endurance work and all that. So they're working on that outside of that. When it comes to strength and conditioning side of it, we really look at taking more of like a injury prevention approach with strength and conditioning, and balancing their weaknesses and their strengths. So if they were a short sprint swimmer before, let's say we had more of a power athlete versus an endurance athlete, then it's kind of their sports practice will they'll obviously be transitioning to that other side of things too, and also the strength training as well, just by based on the type of intensities that they'll be seeing in strength training. We're not doing 80%, 85% max out squats and all that. It's more of a corrective approach to it. So they're seeing a lot different rep schemes, intensity schemes, and all that.
Yeah, makes sense. I feel like it takes a more mature coach to be able to not feel like you need to hammer the athletes like with your strength, like a more intense regimented strength program, like to take a more of a, I don't want to say relaxed, but like you said, like more like movement, injury prevention, like that being the role of strength conditioning. At least for me personally, I probably wouldn't have done that as well as
it's hard.
Yeah.
I want to see everyone have like a great 1 rep max squat and bench, deadlift and all that, but it's hard not to have them do it, but it's for their sport, it's not needed. So, but I still am able to at least watch other teams do it too. Some of my other teams are able to do that strength stuff, and then I don't coach the throwers, but one of our other coaches does, and like seeing them do it is fun too, because they're just insane. So I still get a little bit of that.
Do you have a topic that you'd like to request as a future show, or just a question about training? Reach out to me. My email is ben@zoarfitness.com, or you can DM me on Instagram @zoarfitness. Lastly, head over to zoarfitness.com if you want to browse all of our previous shows with in-depth show notes, as well as educational content for all things training. Cat's out of the bag. You're going to be a coach with ZOAR Fitness. Congrats.
Yeah, thanks.
We're super excited to have you, both Chris and I. And so for people who don't know, like you got into CrossFit and like relatively like really fresh, basically hired me to help you like navigate some of your training. And it was like certain clients like stand out in different ways. And like definitely you were someone who was like very detail oriented, like very just like different in the way that you like thought about strength conditioning. So like obviously now to see your career like morph into strength conditioning, and like now you're in it with both feet, and it's pretty cool to see everything come full circle. So that definitely kind of just like stood out, and like it's cool to see someone who just like loves to like learn and like be like in the trenches and like experimenting and like figuring stuff out. But I'm just like excited to have you as part of the team. I feel like when I am like looking to like bring somebody on, it's like it's super like I'm basically staking the reputation of like my business on that person. Like very different than like when I take on a new client. There's like very little risk there. It's just like, but like when it's a coach, like they're representing the brand. So I'm confident in you and Chris's abilities, and like to have you guys like adding to the value and like bring some well-roundedness that I'm sure that I lack in certain areas. It's super exciting in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm super excited about it. It's a lot to hire someone to kind of represent your brand. So I appreciate you having faith in me. And like you said, I worked with you in the beginning of my CrossFit stuff, and it was like a 1.5 or 2 years. I think like that's my approach to a lot of things, is always learning from people who are smarter than me. right? Because it's like there's no way I'm gonna know unless I ask questions and just like pick people's brains and all that. So I was super lucky to learn from you about all that stuff. And like you put out a ton of content, podcasts, blogs, all that. So I've dug through all of those in detail. And so yeah, I'm excited to be part of the team.
Yeah, for sure. So I got to ask, like, so obviously you're in the strength conditioning world and in the CrossFit world and like your personal fitness journey. Do people give you a hard time?
Oh my God. Yeah. Yes. All the time. Because that's the one thing I've learned. One of the few things that stick out is in the college setting, strength and conditioning world, like there's always jokes about CrossFit where it's like, all right, we're going to do this today. Make sure to not, like I hear other coaches, like, make sure we're not in a fucking CrossFit gym. Sorry for my language. We're not in a CrossFit gym. Don't be kipping the pull-ups, whatever. Pull-ups. So they'll say things like that. So, on my breaks, like if I have some time, I'll work out at the gym when like it's empty and there's no other teams there. And they'll be seeing me do some CrossFit stuff and they're just like, here he goes again. So yeah. So yes, I get a hard time about that all the time, but it's that stereotype that it has.
Yeah. And it's so funny because like people who have been in strength and conditioning a while, like especially when CrossFit like came on the scene, it was like that's like what it was. Like CrossFitters were super obnoxious. I mean, CrossFitters still are. Let's be honest. But yeah, as things continue to professionalize in the sport, it's shifting over time, but it's definitely still got that stigma along with it. So I can't really fault anybody for giving us a hard time about stuff because it's well deserved in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So if you had to kind of put an avatar, like kind of form in your mind, like what maybe an ideal client for you might look like, what kind of a person comes to mind?
I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is someone who like has a goal and wants to get to it, meaning they're going to put in the work needed. So I don't care if it's someone who's brand new to the sport or any strength training in general, or if someone is advanced, like that doesn't really matter to me. I do like to work with athletes, but I've worked a lot with brand new people as well, like people who are brand new to the world of strength training or anything. So if someone just has a goal and just wants to work towards it and puts their faith in me to do it, that's all I could ask. If someone is, let's say they question something that I asked them to do, let's say and they have questions about it. I hope that they're able to ask like the whys and communicate with me, instead of going off the plan or not going off the program and not trusting me. So just someone willing to work, someone who communicates well, and someone who's willing to learn. I'm sure I could learn from them too. So that's basically what I really want.
That's super funny because I asked Chris the exact same question when we did a similar like announcement type podcast with him, and like literally that's what he says. He says, I don't really care what people's goals are, which sounds super calloused at first until you realize like I just want people who are driven, who are goal oriented, who are gonna like be detailed about the way that they go and execute the work and like take it seriously. But then also like if you do have questions, like ask. Don't just like wonder why you're getting this progression or whatever. Like communicate with your coach and kind of figure it out.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing too, because when people, when coaches are really into programming, they kind of like to nerd out on that stuff. So if you ask, that gives us an opportunity to just talk and ramble on about it. So, hey, I'm all about it. So
cool. Last question for you. What, in terms of like looking towards your future, and this could be in any category of things, it's totally up to you. Just like what has you excited these days?
I think in this career field, like what has me most excited is there's always like the cool things of like seeing people reach their goals and all that. But I think it's like meeting people along the way. That's the one thing that always stands out to me. So and to be honest, like I'd love to work with someone who like I'm able to coach to like a really high level. Like that's awesome. That's definitely one of my goals. I'm not going to say it's not. But if I'm looking at like the overall picture of it, like this to me is it's a fun job because you work with all types of people and you meet all types of people who have all these different goals. And it's just like the journey of it is really awesome. So the fact that I'm able to work with young athletes at the University of Arizona in a team setting and then being able to work with people one-on-one coaching, like I get the best of both worlds. I get to meet a ton of people who may stick with strength training and CrossFit and all that, or may go a different direction. But as long as I get to help them out in some way, shape, or form, that's really all that matters to me.
I love it. Day, I'm super excited to have you on staff.
You're excited?
Yeah, you're taking on clients. And so if people want to reach out to you, all your stuff's listed on the website. Your email's day@zoarfitness.com. Where can people find you on socials?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. It's my full name, dayanara.muñoz. So if you go on the website and you see my full name, it's that, but there's a period between my first and last name.
Perfect. Yeah, and I will link to the episode that you did previous with us on episode 46. If people want to listen to that too, we went into a lot more detail. So, Day, super excited. Thanks for doing this today.
Super excited. Thank you, Ben.
Thanks for listening today. If you're someone who just started listening to the show, I would encourage you to subscribe so you can stay up to date. If you're someone who's been listening for a while, I would encourage you to rate and review the show. And lastly, the best thing that you can do to support our work is also the best thing that you can do for your performance. And that is by hiring one of our coaches. Until next time, stay the course.